Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Recruit Military Live, a continuing series of live broadcasts covering all things military transition, veteran employment, mil-spouse employment, and much, much more. My name is Lucas Conley, retired U.S. Army officer and former TAP program manager, here to share with you the ins and outs of navigating the turbulent waters of civilian employment. If you're in search of meaningful employment, well, then you're in the right place, so don't touch that mouse. Visit us at rmvets.com/live to learn more about the resources and opportunities that Recruit Military has to offer you. Now, if you want to have a good job interview, well, there are plenty of places you can go to learn how to have a good job interview. The internet is littered with videos and top 10 tips and advice and coaching. But if you want to have a great job interview, the one that makes you the slam dunk candidate, then sit back, relax, and listen in because me and our guest today are going to go over how to take a good job interview and make it into a home run, slam dunk, 3-point shot, hat trick. Awesome. Great job interview. Going to take you from good to great today. So sit down, relax. Let us roll with the punches here and bring to you at least 9 great tips, 9 great topics, 9 fantastic things you can take away from today's show that is going to help you take your resume from good to great. Our guest today is a man of many talents. His company, MJW Careers, has been helping clients to draft world class resumes, to create attention grabbing social media profiles, and to prepare for winning interviews for more than 13 years. His LinkedIn feed is literally covered from top to bottom with thank you notes and success stories from his clients. He's joined us in the past. We've loved to have him in the past. We love having him back. He's always a lot of fun and a genuine subject matter expert. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Mr. Matt Warzel.
Hey, everybody. Thanks again for having me, Lucas. Always a good time with you. And I appreciate you tooting my horn for me. And let's hope I can back it up now. That was quite an introduction.
I can't. I'm on my third cup of coffee today. I'm excited to be doing the show. I really am pumped up. I'm glad you're here. We always have a good time when you're on. And today we're really going to take it to the next level. There's a lot of great advice out there on the internet. There's a more professional coaches than you can shake a stick at. Everybody seems to be an expert, and most of the advice they're giving is good. We want to go to great. We want to turn it up to 11.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, it's going to take some work on the end of the job seeker, because the good advice usually is easily digested, and there's not much action items to go away with. Maybe just things you can kind of try to practice. But with us, I hope, having seen what we're trying to slate here today, that they can come away with physical to-dos that maybe if they start planting those seeds, things will start sprouting for them.
Absolutely. Don't be afraid when opportunity knocks because it often arrives dressed in work clothes. So let's get after it today, will we? All right. Now that you know who we are, we'd like to hear who you are. Hit us up in that chat window. Let us know where you're watching from, who you are, who you with, who you served with, what your status is. Are you a veteran? Are you transitioning service member? Are you about to retire? Are you a spouse or a caregiver? Some other status we haven't heard of. Feel free to hit us up with your questions, comments, issues, or concerns. Time allowing, we'll get after it. Now, Matt, let's dive right in, full force and headstrong. I think everybody knows they need to do a little bit of research about whatever company or industry they're going into. But I don't think everybody really does enough. I don't think a lot of folks understand what it means to be fully prepared with your research. You want to touch on that for a minute?
Absolutely. I will start this from a macro perspective that everything I do, and I apologize my voice. That's why I mentioned I was traveling. I came out of Miami watching the Browns leave a stinker over there, and I lost my voice, which isn't even worth the product to lose my voice over. But anyway, that's another show. And so what I'll say is, outside my voice, sorry about that. But what I'll start saying is from a macro level, everything needs to be very pragmatic based. The things that you can get caught up online, and it's like you mentioned, ton of good information out there, right? There's a lot of actual things right now that are free you can go view and really have some good takeaways with. The hard part is trying to find those gems. And so not that I'm the greatest interview expert ever, right? Like Lucas trusts me enough where I have my sense and my sensibility about the subject, but again, just whatever you feel would be something you can apply. And what I mentioned here today, great. But again, every hiring manager is completely different. So whatever Lucas and I say today, based off of our pragmatic thinking, might be out the door at some hiring teams, right? Because it's unpredictable. So I just want to start off by saying everything I base my answers off of is completely trying to be the most logical I can be in the world that is chaotic, that, staffing world that is chaotic. But as far as the research, so we all know the interview is coming, which first off, that's a gold nugget. I mean, that is like, I have to tell everyone, when the hiring managers want you to interview, you're halfway there. And you have to believe that, because they don't want to waste time. They're not just, hey, let's bring in 20 people face to face and then start winging it. The people that are getting face to face are people that have been granted and gifted time to further vet. So first and foremost, have confidence knowing these people might want me because they offer to interview me. I mean, it's a no-brainer, but a lot of people don't realize how great of a gift that is, especially for a role you really want. So having said that, treat it like gold, right? So try to get every angle around this job that you can cover. And like you mentioned in the notes we were covering earlier, industry, like their position in the industry, right? General industry information, meaning competitors. What are the advantages of this company you are interviewing for? And how do you see them best going forward? And I love that note, especially that end one, because we as hiring people, like I used to hire as a recruiter, we're not trying to find clock watchers. We're not trying to find people we can give money to every couple of weeks so they can survive and it's like a cause. Our goal is to find people that are continuous improvement experts, troubleshooters, fixers, etc. We want people there that are going to work to make the position or the company go forward in a way that will be prosperous and successful and allow for more growth for people internally. So knowing that if you can really, and I know this is kind of like the after the fact, after you get the interview, but knowing going into the interview how you could be day 1, day 10, day 20, whatever, those are the things you kind of want to try to elaborate on in the interview and show them that you're thinking ahead, trying to make this thing tick, not just, again, a clock watcher.
Yeah, and nobody likes hiring processes. Nobody likes having to take time out of whatever it is they're doing to have to read resumes, to have to go through sourcing, to have to engage with 15 different recruiters from 5 different agencies to fill yet another role because the last guy or gal didn't fit. So if you can build, a bench internally and your next manager comes from in-house, even better. Demonstrate to that employer that you're not just a clock watcher, you're a potential manager, you're not a spectator, you're a doer. And one of the ways you can do that is allowing them to understand that you understand their industry, you care about what it is the company does, you're all in, and you're ready to be not just a cog in the wheel, but a part of the future solutions for the problems this company has.
Absolutely. And if you want it bad enough, that's the thing that you can reflect, right? So if anybody who's going into these interviews going, well, it's just a job and it's the man and I'm just trying to, I don't care about their success, that stuff will resonate and it'll come through with, shouldn't say resonate, that stuff will come through. Mm-hmm. And if it does, it'll resonate with them in a bad way, right? So first off, know yourself. If this is not the path you want to be on, then screw the interview and get away from it and let them hire someone that cares about that. The thing is, like, if you're on this rung that is the corporate ladder and you truly feel like a hamster, well, do something about it. And it's probably not going to go find an 8 to 5. If you're someone that's, hey, I enjoy working for somebody that will treat me well, give me incentives, give me increases, bonuses, whatever stuff based off of this great performance, which it should do, right? Because toxic environments are known right away. If you got a boss that doesn't care about your performance or growth, get the heck out of there too. Make yourself proud of what you're doing. And while you're away 40 hours a week from people that really do matter in your life, to go hang with people that, you could probably just get away with not knowing ever again. But again, you want to thrust yourself into this idea that if you truly are feeling like you're passionate about a line of work and this company has that line of work to offer, don't worry about bonuses and that kind of stuff right away. And I'll just say this right away. Don't ask what the salary is on interview 1.
Never.
Ever, because all they know is that's all you care about. But it'll come. But if you truly are passionate about this stuff, that's where the research needs to start playing. Then, if you're personally committed, now the research ain't for naught. Now it's worth it, right? And when we talk about research, it can get overwhelming. Competitors, industry, blah blah blah. But we're not in the yellow book ages anymore. Nor do we have to go and talk to people to figure out this information. Now it's all online. You can go to these glass doors and etc. So start very simple. Itemize things you want to find out, and then work really hard at crossing off each of those research points using whatever resources online. And by the end of this report, maybe it'll take you a few days, you'll have some nice literature to go over and practice before the actual interview. So it is some work.
And you hit on two things. You said two things that people might not appreciate. One, you said the word industry, and two, you said know yourself. If you were about to go out into the workforce, and I swear every time I hear somebody say, I ask to say, what's your professional goal? I say, I want to be a project manager. And I say, what industry? And they go, what do you mean? All right. If you don't know, all right.
It's so broad, PMs, exactly.
Hey, I want to be a project manager. What industry? What do you mean? If you don't know what industry you want to work in, stop. Pump the brakes. Put your hands in your pockets. Find a quiet place to sit under a tree and think about. Do some introspection. Ask yourself what you want in life. If you're someone who believes in green energy and policies to save the planet, you probably don't need to work in the oil and gas industry. Not going to align with your value statement. All right.
Right. Exactly. I always say internalize, realize, then visualize. Internalize what you want to do, realize what that thing is, and then start visualizing how you're going to get to that next level. And that I always tell my clients, kind of keep with that theme, right? Really, like you said, meditate on some stuff. And it sounds like if it's not worth the effort, you most likely aren't going to be as successful in a candidacy as the folks that really will take that serious, that part.
All right. Now, we've talked before in the past about informational interviews, about beating the box, so to speak, when it comes to the ATS. I want to talk about a technique that is a slam dunk way of having a great interview, and that's getting a referral. All right. And you've told us in the past, the only way to get moved to the top of that list is an employee referral. What can candidates do to get a referral when they're coming to a company that they're fresh, they're new, nobody knows them? How do they work that networking process and land somebody in their corner?
Okay, so this is a handful in terms of like what you may have to do, and a lot of people will completely skip this part because it is a purely seed-based approach. You're planting seeds hoping something will flourish, and it may not. There's tons of variables when you're reaching out to people. A, they might not ever be on the platform you're reaching out to them. B, you are a stranger and they're not savvy or I shouldn't say privy. They're not privy to doing stuff like that. They're like, no, I don't deal with any cold stuff. Fine. But there are people that will. And so to do that, you want to start cold messaging people. There's nothing like networking on LinkedIn when you have a playground, everybody's in together. We're all in the same playground, hiring people looking for work. We know our position. We know where that's at. So when you get in there, start to really try to figure out people you want to talk to that is either people that can help you in succession planning, meaning folks doing stuff you want to do or aspire to do. Start to ping them and ask me if you could bend their ear. I always say it's the iced coffee approach where you maybe give them $5 or $10 Amazon card, which again, watch your budget. You don't need to spend hundreds of dollars, but maybe $50 for 5 different people. It wouldn't be that bad because maybe they'll gift you a half hour. And so the succession person you might be targeting can help you figure out how they got there and what skills you might need to get, right? Upskilling opportunities, what kind of career pathing you might be able to do. So that's one thing. And that's if you don't want to hire someone like ourselves, like coaches and stuff. If you want to do this on your own DIY, this is a good way to do it, right? So people that can help you get where you want to be. They're not hiring. They're just there to help you personally develop. Then there's the other side, the hiring people. And that's twofold. You get the hiring managers and the recruiters. Recruiters are more apt to getting cold stuff because we love fresh fish. So as soon as we see new resumes as recruiters, we're like, I'm going to give it the 6-second eye test because we're looking for, anywhere really. But again, be mindful of these people when you're reaching out to them, no matter who it is. Don't shotgun messages and get casual. Hey, look at my resume. Very professional, quick, but very professional and mindful. Now, if you're going after the creme de la creme, which is the hiring managers, these folks are very hard to again, get them to respond a lot of times because they are in the position of hiring and they're busy doing operational stuff. Staffing is last on their mind. So with them, that's where it becomes a unique situation where you don't send the resume right away. You don't kind of go after them with intentions. You go after them just politely asking for some time to either bend their ear about why they've been so successful at this company. Again, these are the people that are at the companies you want to work for. Or, hey, what's it take for me to be a good candidate in the process of hiring at your company? I'm just wondering, what are some things you're noticing outside of the basic stuff? Or you offer them some value. Give them an article about a competitor you just saw that's new. Give them some news pieces, maybe a book that the ins and outs of project management in this particular space.
Engage. Be personal.
personal, but also offer value and wait to ask for anything until they know you. And those are specifically the hiring managers mainly because, again, they're the ones that hold that kind of the key that you're trying to get a hold of. And so be mindful that you're coming out of nowhere. So how would you feel if someone's coming after you hot like that? So just, offer some value if you can and keep going.
I think the technique that I would offer for our veterans here, and this is great. You're a veteran. Look into that company's database. Look into that LinkedIn page for the company. Find someone who works for the company who also served, and if you get lucky, you find somebody that was in your branch of service, and then you can use that. Service is great. You know what? If having served serves you a little bit more to make a connection, then make it. Hey, you served on the Missouri. Oh, you served on the Ronald Reagan. I also served on the Ronald Reagan. I'm interested in your industry and your company. Do you think you could spare a few minutes for an Old Navy buddy?
Right.
You're in.
Exactly. And anything, right? School, associations, whatever, things you can find that commonality. And then the biggest part of all this is consistency. I'd call it tickling them, making sure you don't just drop the ball after one conversation, right? Maybe a few weeks later, offer another article for them to read or whatever to stay top of mind. That's the hard part, is being consistent and keeping a schedule with this stuff.
All right. Now I've read a couple of things about interview questions. I haven't read a couple of things about interview questions. I've read volumes about interview questions, for Lord's sake. And one of the things that keeps coming back to me is tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about yourself. And the best advice that I give to people is, first of all, don't actually tell them about yourself. That's not what they're asking. Another piece of advice I got, hit a home run in the first 5 minutes. Well, in the first 5 minutes, you're getting that tell me about yourself question. How do you take that question, ball it up, and knock it out of the park?
Well, first, quick and concise, no matter what your interview answer is. I love the 2-minute idea because that's kind of what, when I'm interview training clients, a lot of times that's the biggest faux pas, is just going on. Outside of the old proverbial, we're going to beat one project till it's dead, is my answer for everything. I love those ones. But tell me about yourself. You're right. They don't care you play the violin. They don't want to know stuff they can see on the resume, first and foremost, right? So they've already gathered you've been a project manager, or you just got your PMP certification, whatever, that even if it's very enticing for this role, the goal for them to understand is, how are you going to fit for this job I'm interviewing for, not these 15 other jobs I have open personally. And so in doing that, every time you open your mouth, you should be selling yourself. There's zero room for you to let go of any valuable time of selling yourself, including follow-up emails or letters. When you do a follow-up, you always want to reemphasize a few things about either how they'll remember you or how you will fit based off of what their main criteria was. So identify, this is for every interview question you're going to answer. First off, go and look at this job description, identify the main responsibilities, how you've done those main responsibilities and done them well, and then any sort of skills that you might be able to just elaborate about why you're good at that particular skill. And then take all that and here, this is going to be the basis of the interview. Now, when questions like this come in, weaknesses, strengths, tell me about yourself, tell me about Lucas and where you're at in 5 years. These all things should still go back to this stuff, the actual role and responsibilities, because again, they don't care about your fishing. They just care about how you're going to be able to deliver 10 projects simultaneously on time, because that's what this role entails. So if you could tie your ability to handle this role with the about myself question, and that could get a little tricky. Again, it's going to take a little work. It's not something you could just kind of script, but you want to work to try to figure out, again, how you are going to be offering value for that role. So keep it subject matter related, the job itself, don't get too personal. I find that if people get too personal, they start to get a little lean, or they start to get a little more, they kind of let their guard down a little bit. Yeah. And that's a killer in an interview. That's a killer. It's going to hurt you more than help.
Right. And I love what you said about the sell. This is a sales call. You are selling you. Ever since the dawn of the industrial era, when society first monetized its labor for cash or goods rather than for personal sustainment, we, people who make things, build things, pick things up, carry things, deliver services, we are monetized. We are selling our services in exchange for some cash. Right? So you're selling yourself as a candidate. What is your sales pitch? What is your value statement? What are you bringing to the table? know what the sales pitch is. If I go down to the dealership and I want to look at a Chevy Silverado, he's going to tell me about the hauling capacity, the size of the engine, how comfortable the
Right.
seats are, what kind of stereo it is, what the displacement is, what the suspension is. It's got the Z71 package. He knows what, to sell me on. Sell you. What are your experiences? And I love that you touched on that.
Absolutely. If anybody in the audience needs a quasi kind of script, let me know. I have one. I'll give it out for free. So, and then a quick question about the elevator pitch from Gladys. Yes. Tell me about yourself is essentially the elevator pitch. I mean, that's kind of like the summary in the resume. These are the things where how do you offer value to a specific role in a specific industry and leave it there? How are you able to get paid over, every couple of weeks to do this job and do it well over Jim, John, and Jackie behind you? That's the goal, right? So keep in mind, every time you're a candidate, they're not there to see if you're a cool person to hang out with. They're there to see if you could do this job and do it well and make their life easier. So keep that in mind. It's professional stuff. This isn't a personal game.
Now, Gladys, what I've heard from other perspectives is that the elevator pitch is your 30-second sell.
Yeah.
The tell me about yourself is your 30-second sell plus about 3 of your favorite accomplishment bullets, along with delivering your professional summary, all jammed into about 2 minutes.
Exactly.
Who I am, what I've done, my significant accomplishments, how they're relevant to this role, and why I think I'm a good fit. Does that make sense, Matt?
It does. It exactly does. Because a summary in the resume, it cuts off before you start getting into the actual accomplishments. I should have rephrased that. But yeah, because a summary is, again, your value statement, your sales pitch, your unique selling proposition. The tell me about yourself is, again, your sales pitch, your unique selling proposition. So it kind of all relates, but to tell me about yourself, you definitely want to go into a few aspects of the actual job versus the summary. Let that start to bleed into the resume itself about those aspects, those accomplishments.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think we're knocking it out of the park here, Matt. Emmys for both of us.
Of course. Just it's a matter of when.
Yeah. All right. Now, not every candidate is perfect for the role. Transitioning service members often come out of the military with an experience gap. Maybe they don't have the exact education they need. Maybe they're still working on it. Maybe there's a key certification that they don't have. They haven't upskilled yet. Your interviews have seen that. What do we do to get past the fact that we may be missing something that interviewer is looking for?
Yeah, I mean, with the gap. So, and this is the biggest thing that I always take away from job descriptions, because again, they're coming from the hiring managers. These things are gold because recruiters like me were marketing majors, hiring aviation people. I never flew a plane, so you got to be mindful of the audience, right? And that's kind of why I always say, when you're selling your resume or you're writing your resume, don't go too much into the details of every project, because a lot of people get like I don't know what the heck I'm reading. So in that sense, use a job description to find those skills that you might be lacking, or find some resources online like RecruitMilitary that you guys have that shows civilian transferable stuff, right? So like it's called this in the military. Here's what's called in the civilian world. You may have some skills you have no idea that that's what they're called in private sector. So educate yourself on, first, do you have the skill that they're talking about? Because you may already, just called something different. And second, if you don't, look for those upskilling opportunities online. Then go and say, okay, I'm supposed to have MS Project for this world I want to be in. I see it all over these job descriptions. So I'm going to go and figure out how to get this credential. If I think that's how I was interpreting it. Is that kind of correct? If you're kind of missing something?
No. I think you nailed it. And the only thing I would add to that is that the concept of those key performance outcomes is that, let's say the company wants you to be certified in Lean Six Sigma process improvement. Maybe you don't have that certification, but you've managed projects in the past that had outputs similar to what they're looking for from a process improvement person. Hey, I've managed processes, I've streamlined logistics processes, I've had to manage inventories, I've had to manage P&L, I've had to use limited resources and limited time to deliver on time, on target. And say, look, I understand I don't have that certification. I am working on that certification. But I can tell you, in the past, I have performed in roles, in duties very similar to what you're looking for in a process improvement manager. And if you'll give me a second, I can give you an example. I think 90% of the time they're going to be like, please continue.
Exactly. And if you can use some more of the jargon from the civilian side of things, like, like when we talk projects, you hear, requirements gathering and budgeting and protocol development and these kind of things, contractor management. So just for sake of sanity, just to boil it down, if you were managing soldiers, not subcontractors, but they were on a project and everything kind of was the same as a project, you could just say I was managing some contract, or I was managing some personnel, right? Generalize it so you're not saying soldiers, right? Because you got to help them help you. And some recruiters just cannot connect some dots, right? So you're like, have to kind of tell them, oh, I should have said personnel, not soldiers, because as soon as they hear soldiers, they might turn you off because they just don't know any better. So again, less is more, and just make sure that, you are mindful of the audience and what their understanding of things, right? And a lot of times they don't know military speak. So that's a great point by you. And yes, you definitely want to try to find those comparisons.
Right. Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, the fact that you've got a piece of paper hanging on the wall behind your desk that says green belt or says PMP, it matters nothing. Your ability to generate results in the workforce, your ability to positively impact the P&L, improve efficiencies, deliver results on time or ahead of schedule, that's what they're worried about. They're just using that as an indicator that you possess the skills necessary to do it. So.
Right, exactly. And they'll even say that on job descriptions, mandatory or prefer this type of credential or experience. Usually, they'll say stuff like that because, there's no one holding them under the coals, or, they're not getting held over the coals going, they got to have this PMP to get hired here. It's like there's no insurance infected by it. Like, whereas when I hired HVAC mechanics, they had to have a degree because insurance was paying them, or we were paying insurance, put them in vans. So certain things are mandated just because purely based from a requirement standpoint. Most of the time, it's just, like you said, this ensures that they've learned some of the fundamentals of this type of stuff. If they want
to validation,
right? So great point there.
I've been to a lot of interviews. I've had some wacky questions. I've been asked why there's fuzz on a tennis ball. I've been asked why there are dimples. I'm not kidding. I've been asked why there are dimples on a golf ball. All right. And if anybody cares, it's because it reduces the drag coefficient of the ball and causes it to go farther. The fuzz on a tennis ball makes it bounce slower. All right. Goofy questions. Hopefully, when you go into an interview, you don't get these goofy questions, because personally, I think they're a waste of time. Most of what our folks are going to see are what are called behavioral-based interview questions. Tell me about a time when tell me about an experience you had working with A. There's a right way and a wrong way to answer these questions. Matt, can you tell us the right way?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can stick to, like we had discussed, the STAR method, and there's the PAR method. Obviously, there's all these kind of acronyms, but essentially what you're trying to do is storytell here. And again, 2 minutes, right? Nothing should drag on, but being mindful that they want to know some of the ins and outs of what you were doing on the last role, or whatever you were doing, whenever you were doing a certain responsibility that they have. So let's say they're going to grill you and say, okay, have you ever done full project management life cycle? And you could say, yes. In fact, if you look at my resume here, it shows you a little anecdote here, which should be a very process-oriented statement on the resume. Remember, no details, just action result, did this, and here's the result. And I always say this to my clients, the resume is the meal when you're submitting it to the job. It's fully cooked, ready to eat. When they eat it, they love it. They're going to bring you in to talk about the ingredients, and that's where you can talk about all the little details of each of the neat little accomplishments. So
it's like Gordon Ramsay. Tell me about your dish.
Yeah, exactly, and that's where you want to wait for the interview to do that, because no one has the time or the patience to look at 2 pages worth of those heavy details. So forget all the acronyms. Keep them in a certain place so they're keyword trapped and they're optimized, but don't fill this freaking thing with them either, because people can't get through it. So then let's say you get interviewed, so you have this nice, tightly wound statement that you want to expand upon. The interview we use, like the STAR methods when I train my folks on, situation, task, action, result. So, and again, 2 minutes total. Here's the situation, Mr. and Mrs. Manager. Here's what I did. Here was here's the situation. Here was the task I performed, what I did. Here was the action, and then here was the result. Right. So you're going to get every single one of these behavioral-based interview questions exactly in this formula without having to sound too rehearsed, bear in mind. But this will allow for you to keep it quick, concise, and you have it in your head of how you're going to hit these little mile markers. And then at the end of the interview, at the end of that question, put that project away and do not talk about it again if you can avoid it. Because again, beat a dead horse. I've had so many interviews where they just keep going over a certain project, and it bores everybody because there's so much. There's only so many times you can
start to sound like a one-trick pony, like you've only done
Yes.
one good thing in the last 3 years. That's all you have to talk about.
Right. So get that out of there. I can't
It's like,
emphasize enough.
come on, you invented the iPhone. Like, can you come up with something else? What else have you done?
The iPad.
That's it? A phone? Oh, wow. Come on, people. Broaden your horizons. Do something.
Yeah, exactly.
Get a haircut, please. All right. So the STAR method: situation, task, action, result, and quantifiable results, please. All personnel and equipment accounted for is not a quantifiable result. Returned from deployment with nobody dead. While absolutely fantastic. And in the military, bringing everybody back home safe, uninjured, alive, with all your equipment accounted for is absolutely an accomplishment. That's not a P&L quantifiable accomplishment that is going to impress an employer.
Exactly. If you can add a little number at the end or some sort of like at least the monetization, hey, and that actually we generated millions off of that. Great, just so they can get some scope. But if you even have, hey, that was about 30% decrease in discrepancies in our workflow process. They love that stuff. You're talking operational speak, scope, quick to the point of like what the results were, and it shows you care about the money or the efficiency or the productivity, et cetera. These are things, again, clock watchers don't worry about. These are the things continuous improvement experts do. And so show that.
All right. That's fantastic. Got to do the STAR method. In fact, I've seen some employers sitting on the opposite side of the table with a sheet that says STAR across the top of it, and they're writing your responses down in the format that they're expecting to get. And if they're leaving something blank, then they're missing something that they're looking for. So I love it. It sounds fantastic.
Excellent. Yeah.
Sometimes, even more important than the questions that the interviewers ask is the questions that you ask the interviewer. Now, remember, this is a two-way interview. This is a little bit like dating. This is kind of a mating ritual. They are assessing you. You are assessing them. When they ask you, do you have any questions? The only wrong answer is no, I don't have any questions.
Right.
Because it sends a signal that you are disengaged mentally from this process. What are some of the right ways to approach that when you're asked what are your questions?
Yes, you want to say yes because I heard this a long time ago, and it makes sense because we as humans love talking about our role or our company or how excited we are about our world. So if you are asking them questions, it gives them a chance to talk. And boy, aren't they excited to talk? So always ask, even if you could give 2 scores because you already know you want this job and pretty much a lot of the answers that you had probably already had in mind, maybe a couple of the other, outlier ones, like when you make a decision stuff, but really still show like you do. Ask some questions. Don't elongate this part either, though. Don't get annoying. So be mindful, just a handful, if that, depending on how quick they answer. But I always say, and here's a few examples I always like, is what else can the person filling this position do to make your job easier? And that's a great little aspect of, again, showing them that you're trying to be their Tylenol to their headaches, right? How can I make your life easier if you hired me?
Be a problem solver.
I love that. The next one, I read X, Y, and Z are the company's values. Can you give me an example of what these values look like in action? So company mission statements, the value statements, things like that on their website, know these before an interview because
you're demonstrating you did your research. That means you care. That means you have passion. They're going to perk up when they hear their own mission statements and values, that you're getting their attention in a heartbeat.
And some will grill you. They'll say, tell me about our value statement. Some just flat out want to know if you went and did it. So I've seen that before. So please, learn that. But and then it gives you that kind of the ammo for this question, right? Give me some examples of what these values look like. And then I'll give you another one here. Name examples of leaders who have motivated or inspired you. What do you think of that one? Kind of getting them to go in a little bit about them.
Is Captain Kangaroo a viable answer? There are many times I have wanted to give up on that ping pong ball, trying to get it into the coffee cup, the coffee can. I'm dating myself now. It takes resilience. It takes resilience.
You're so funny. Sorry, Captain Kangaroo.
Okay, if you don't laugh a little on this show, we've done something wrong. Probably the best example that I've ever had, and it's something that I came up with, and it flowed just accidentally. I wrote it down afterwards because I thought it was a fantastic example of how to answer one of these questions. During my interview, and this is with a beverage company that I won't name, I had a phone interview with this beverage company, and they asked me, why do you want to work for and name it. Why do you want to work for us? Of all the companies out there that make soda, why do you want to work for us? I answered the question, I think, very well. At the end, they asked me, do you have any questions? And the lady, the woman who had asked me that question was the HR director, and I recognized that she was the HR director because it was a phone call. It was the only
Right.
female voice on the call. I knew she was going to be there, so by default, she had asked. I said to her, something like this: Mrs. Jones, during the interview, you asked me why I wanted to work for your company. I'm curious. I see from your LinkedIn profile you went to Cornell, you have a Harvard Business School master's, and 10 years with the company. I'm certain there have been other companies that have tried to poach you. Why do you still want to work for such and such? She laughed. She laughed out loud, and in the background, I could hear somebody say, "That's a good question."
Right. I just thought that. That's great. Shows you did your due diligence too. Not to mention. I mean, you were looking her up, vetting a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Last but not least, and I think this is the big one. I think this is the one thing you can do. The one thing you can do to be successful in an interview, and that is practice, practice, practice. What, in your opinion, Matt, are the best methodologies to get the most out of your rehearsals leading up to an interview?
When I do interview training and we do mock interviewing as part of it, always first off tackling the resume stuff, right? The why'd you leave here? What made you do X, Y, and Z? So know your resume inside and out and your career trajectory thus far, including why you left everywhere. Recruiters will grill you almost immediately before they even get to the nuts and bolts of the job. So first, foremost, resume. Second, practice your job description requirements, meaning here's the role you're interviewing for. Know inside and out how you match each of the main responsibilities. If you don't have one that matches and you really are trying to transfer one from your old history, maybe you're really grasping for some straws with some of these responsibilities, it's okay to just know that you didn't do that. A lot of times recruiters are just trying to find someone to bring in an interview that maybe meets 7 out of 10 criteria, right? They're not looking for the 10 out of 10 they are, but they're not usually landing the 10 out of 10s. We call those purple squirrels in recruiting. So know that it's okay. You don't have to have everything. But again, the ones you do have, know how you're going to answer about those responsibilities. And then finally, those existential questions, the behavioral stuff I should say the behavioral, but also the psychological type stuff where strengths, weaknesses, 4:30 on a Friday, and you get an assignment, you had something to do that weekend. Anything that just gets you in these kind of like positions of like, what would you do that doesn't necessarily relate to like the work you did. Massage some answers in your background while you're practicing, right? Go through some mock interviews, massage these things, maybe hire a coach like myself that can go over things and show you what's good and bad about the answers. But again, you're just trying to get 2-minute nice narrative for each of these types of answers where you're not getting stumbled. You're making it relevant to the role still. And again, short and sweet, right? So practicing will get you there. People tend to go to these interviews going, I'm gonna improvise. And it's like, what are you stand-up comedian in New York City for the last 10 years and improvising around town? Like there's only so many people going to shoot from the hip and just nail it.
You want your payroll administrator improvising? Let's say, I don't know how much we're going to pay this guy this week. Let's just put I'm going with $5.75 an hour. Next. Don't make stuff up as you go.
Unless you're on Saturday Night Live. We don't have the chops for that.
I think what you've said is very important. A good interview is very well rehearsed, and even better, I think you've made the point. Mock interviews, having someone to provide you feedback is probably the next step to making your performance go from good to great.
Absolutely. And always send a thank you letter afterwards. That is crucial. A lot of people don't do it, and it's so assumed these days, and people still don't do it.
Right. Well, I wish we could go all day. We've got enough material to cover that we could take up another hour. Let's close it out with my favorite question, Matt. One piece of advice that these folks that are listening can take away in 30 seconds or less. What have you got?
And I kind of always end with this, I think, on your show. But again, hiring process is long, arduous, expensive, right? These people in recruiting and hiring managing teams, they're trying their best too, with a lot of just action all day. So be mindful. They're humans. They're trying their best to find the right person so they don't have to keep doing this every freaking week with the same role. They don't want to hire someone, onboard them, induct them, train them, and then the guy or girl leaves in a month. So be mindful and mind your P's and Q's with these people. They don't owe you anything. No one does, except mom. And so just show your value, so then they'll give you that time. But otherwise, keep rolling, man. Every job is out there meant to be. Don't get hung up at one job and it doesn't turn out and you beat yourself up. Just keep going. Put yourself out there.
Matt, are you open to having some of these great folks in the audience connect with you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. Please do. And you can check me out at jobstickers.com. It's in my thing there. I can't think right. Jobstickers.com. And you'll kind of find my world with my blog and all that good stuff.
Fantastic, Matt. Once again, a great show. Thanks for being here. The fact that you're able to commit time to helping out these young men and women and the retirees and the mill spouse and transition service members out there, we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
and for those
guys.
of you out there who haven't already done so, do yourself a solid and use the link rmvets.com/live. Head on over to our website at RecruitMilitary, where you will find over 400,000 job opportunities from 16,000 employers. Recruit Military is on a mission to help veterans, transitioning service members, and mill spouses find meaningful employment. On behalf of Recruit Military and the folks that joined us today, Matt, I can't wait to have you back on.
Do it again next year, bud. More Emmys.
All right, brother. More Emmys. We'll celebrate. So we'll put them side by side.
Yeah.
And folks, if you tune in next week, Matt won't be here, and neither will I. It's the holiday weekend, so I'm going to take 1 week off. Get myself a little stuffed full of turkey and dressing and anything else they put on the plate in front of me. But if you tune in the week after that, we'll have the pleasure of hosting Amanda Huffman, U.S. Air Force veteran, podcaster, writer, and published author, to talk about her unique experiences transitioning from Air Force civil engineering to mill spouse and mom. This has been Lucas Conley for Recruit Military Live. Thanks again for being here, and until next time, good luck and Godspeed.